Hey, Dad.
Yeah, bud.
I have a problem.
What's your issue?
Well, I asked a girl out the other day, and then she says, I have a boyfriend. Then I say, well, I have a math test. And then she says, what does a boyfriend have to do with a math test? Then I said, hey, listen, I'm sorry. I thought we were both talking about things that we could cheat on. Hey, Dad, did you hear about little Johnny going to see a psychiatrist?
Little Johnny went and saw a psychiatrist.
Yeah, and he was butt naked, wrapped in saran wrap, head to toe.
Let me get this straight. He was completely naked, and he was wrapped in saran wrap from the top of his head to the bottom of his feet?
Yeah, and when he walked in, the psychiatrist said, oh, I can clearly see your nuts. Hey, Dad.
Yeah, bud.
So this girl at school won't leave me alone.
What's going on?
Well, she said, Dommy, my love for you is like all the stars in the sky. And I said, well, that's nice. And she said, tell me how much you love me. And then I said, my love for you is kind of like picking up a turd from the queen, and it's just never going to happen.
Terrible that little Johnny had ended up passing away, and very unfortunate that he only had 2 friends that could come and identify him at the morgue. So the mortician brought each one of them back individually. He brings the first guy back. He looks at him. He says, oh, that looks a lot like him, but could you flip him over, please? So reluctantly, he flips him over, and he looks him up and down. He says, no, that ain't him. He says, okay. And he brings the second guy back, and he looks at him. He says, oh, my gosh, that looks just like little Johnny. He says, but could you flip him over, please? Oh, the mortician's getting very frustrated, but he does it. And the guy looks him up and down. He says, well, I would swear that was him, but it's not him. So the mortician says, all right, I need both of you to come back here. He says, if you think it looks just like him and then you have me flip him over, how do you know it's not him? Well, they both said, well, he's got 2 assholes. He says, what do you mean he's got 2 assholes? He says, well, every time we'd go anywhere, everyone would always say, well, here comes little Johnny with those 2 assholes. Little Johnny goes to class, and it turns out that the teacher is sick, and there's a substitute. Well, usually little Johnny is pretty naughty when there's a substitute, but this one was beautiful. And she goes up on the board and she writes her name, P-R-U-S-S-Y. My name is Mrs. Prussy. Can you say that, class? And they say, hello, Mrs. Prussy. And she says, perfect. Well, little Johnny was an angel. He just couldn't stop looking at her, and everything she would say, he would do. Well, a couple of weeks go by, the teacher's sick again, and they get the same substitute teacher. Well, Johnny's all excited, and she says, hi, little Johnny, do you remember me? He says, yeah, I remember you. She says, well, do you remember my name? He says, yeah, I remember your name. She says, oh, yeah, well, what is it? And he's thinking. She says, well, the second letter is an R. He says, oh, yeah, Mrs. Crunt.
Hey, Dad.
Yeah, bud.
I got in trouble at summer school today.
Really, what happened?
Well, Mr. Ratsniff tried to convince us that the world was flat. And then I raised my hand and she says, yes, Dommy? Then I said, hey, listen. Maybe if we told everyone that their brain was an app, they'd start using it more. Hey, Dad.
Yeah, bud.
Since we're out on a walk, I want to tell you how I broke up with my girlfriend.
Oh, man, what happened?
Well, she said that she loved me, and I said, that's nice. And she said, well, don't you love me? And I said, hey, listen. You kind of remind me of hiking. And she says, oh, because you like it so much? Yeah, and we have our ups, we have our downs, but mostly we're just going around in circles.
You can't say that. Hey, John, want to hear a joke?
Yep.
Little Johnny and little Susie had lived a long life, and they were both in this nursing home, and every day they had an hour's worth of recreation in the recreation hall, and little Susie would go down there with little Johnny, and she'd hold on to his pecker for a whole hour. Well, a couple of days go by, little Susie's late, and she goes down to find another woman holding on to little Johnny's penis. And she goes up and smacks him in the back of the head and says, oh my gosh, little Johnny, what does she have that I don't have? Little Johnny looks up and smiles and says, Parkinson's. Little Johnny's mom was having an affair, and one day little Johnny came home from school early and saw his mom up in the bedroom with her lover, and so he hid in the closet. 10 minutes later, little Johnny's dad comes home. That lover jumps up, hides in the closet, and little Johnny says, "It's dark in here." Guy says, yeah, it is. He says, "I got a baseball. Want to buy it?" He says, "How much?" He said, $250. He says, "You're crazy." He says, "My dad's out there." He says, "All right, sold." Week later, same thing happens. Little Johnny's hiding in the closet. The dad comes home. The lover hides in the closet. Little Johnny says, "It's dark in here." Guy says, "Oh, not you again." He says, "I've got a baseball glove." He says, "How much?" He said, $750. He says, "Oh, you're killing me." Sold. A week later, little Johnny's dad says, "Go grab your ball and glove." He says, "I can't." He says, "Why?" He says, "Because I sold it." He said, how much did you sell it for?" He said, $1,000. He said, $1,000? You stole from your friends. You're going to confession. So little Johnny goes to confession, goes in there, and he sits down, and he says, "It's dark in here." Guy says, "Oh, you little shit, you're in my closet now." Yeah, bud.
My teacher asked me why I wasn't at school all week, and I said, "Well, Teach, I had diarrhea, and so did my mom, my dad, my sister, and my grandma and grandpa." Then she said, "Oh my gosh," and then I said, "Yeah, runs in the family."
One day, little Johnny's got to go to the bathroom real bad, so he runs on in there, and his mom's taking a shower. He looks down between her legs. He says, "Mama, what is that?" She says, "Oh, that's just my bush." He says, "Okay," and he goes out and goes and plays. Well, a couple days later, little Johnny got to go to the bathroom again real bad. He runs on in there, and his dad's taking a shower. He points between his dad's legs. He says, "Dad, what is that between your legs there?" He says, "Oh, this is my snake." He says, "Okay." And he goes outside and goes and plays. Well, lo and behold, another few days go by, and little Johnny runs in the bathroom again. This time his grandma is taking a shower. He says to Grandma, "What are those things on your chest?" And she says, "Oh, these are my headlights." He says, okay. And he goes out and goes and plays. Well, a couple of nights later, little Johnny wakes up and he's got a nightmare, and he's freaking out, and he runs into his parents' bedroom, and he looks in there and he sees his parents going at it. He says, Mama, turn on your headlights. There's a snake trying to get in your bush." Hey, Dad, want to hear a joke?
Yeah.
All right, little Johnny turns 18 and he enlists in the Navy. Gets shipped off to sea right away, and the captain's showing him around, and little Johnny says, "Oh, this place looks great." He says, "But what do you do when you're out at sea for so long and you have to, take care of your urges?" The guy says, "Oh, I got something for you." He takes him all the way to the back of the ship, and he says, "You see that barrel over there?" He says, "That's the best sex you'll ever have." He goes, "Try it out. I'll give you some privacy." So the guy goes away. Little Johnny comes out about 15 minutes later. He says, "Oh my gosh, that was amazing." He says, "I want to do that every day." He goes, "Well, you can do it every day except Thursday." He says, "Why can't I do it on Thursday?" He says, "Because that's your day in the barrel." Hey, yeah.
You want to hear a joke?
Yeah, I want to hear a joke.
Little Johnny applied for a job at Home Depot, and the manager said, "You're hired. Little Johnny, right now I can start you at $10 an hour. And in 3 months, I'll raise you to $15 an hour. Little Johnny, when can you start?" Little Johnny thinks about it. He says, "Boss, I'll be ready to start in 3 months."